This year, we lost one of our Gedolim. Someone, really a tremendous, tremendous person for Klal Yisrael. His name was Rabbi Mitatyahu Solomon. He was the Mashgiach in Lakewood. And over the years, he built Lakewood and had a tremendous kesher with his Talmidim. I have a piece that I just took a couple parts from that he spoke. It was on Shiva Asad B'Tammuz. The year was Tafshin Ayin Aleph. The year was 2011. It was 13 years ago. He says, Rambam in Hilchot Ta'anit, he says there are days when Klal Yisrael is obligated to fast because of sarot that happened to them, in order to arouse us and open our hearts to the ways of Teshuvah. These days are meant to remind us of what we have to correct. And then we can correct the whole situation. In this world, if we do Teshuvah, we can correct it all. He says, what is Tisha B'Av all about? He says, an army surrounded Yerushalayim, but Klal Yisrael thought that they were protected. The Nevi'im rebuked us over and over again and told them, if we don't do Teshuvah, Hashem will destroy the Beit HaMikdash. 3 weeks later, the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. Why? Because we didn't listen. It was because we didn't listen to the tochacha, the rebuke that the Nevi'im were telling us. We have no Nevi'im today, he says. So that they could point the finger and say, listen, this is what you have to correct. He says, but the truth is, the reason we have no Nevi'im is because we all know what we have to correct. What does Hashem want from us? Everything we know He wants from us. He says, but we do have Gedolim, Baruch Hashem. He says, but maybe we don't appreciate. Maybe we don't appreciate our Gedolim. What a Zaken means to us. He says, Baruch Hashem, Hashem left us with some Zakenim. Baruch Hashem, we have great Zakenim. We have Chacham Yosef Raful sitting in Brooklyn, Gadol in his 90s. We have in Lakewood. We have a lot of Gedolim still, Baruch Hashem. This is back then. But he says we want them to go in front of us to greet Mashiach. And if we listen to them, it'll happen. If we look up to them and take their example, and yes, if they make a proclamation every now and then, very carefully, expecting Klal Yisrael to correct what's wrong and to understand the dangers of life around them. I remember when Chacham Yosef told us about television years ago. It could have been maybe 40 years ago. And we didn't think it was anything. It was basically Sesame Street and very, very, very simple programs, nothing bad. Today we look back, could anybody argue and say, then we thought, how could it be? It doesn't make sense what he's saying. You look back today and you see how a Gadol thinks and how he sees. So I'm going to continue with Rabbi Solomon. So he says, the Torah teaches the daughters of Midian and of Moab caused Klal Yisrael to sin. And he says that the Torah is full of love, mercy, and forgiveness. But you see, it gives us a mitzvah to hate them to the core. We're commanded to learn how to hate them and wipe them out because they are your greatest enemy since they made you sin. Chazal tell us, Gadol hamachtiyo yoter min hahargo. If someone makes you sin, it's a much more serious affair than if he kills you. One who makes you sin causes you to lose your olam hazeh and your olam haba. Whereas if he kills you, he says you lose your olam hazeh, but you have eternity. So let me tell you, here's where he drops the bomb. Let me tell you something, he says. Perhaps this will shock you. But on the other hand, it's what's going on. And this is what our Zekanim have been shouting about for a long time, and no one seems to be listening. If you walk down the street, every other house Yiddish Kinder, meaning children, are being murdered, addicted, gone. That's a machtio, he says, in the worst sense. I'm thinking now, he's speaking 2011. 2011 till now, 13 years. How many children, how many people Klal Yisrael were lost? I know, horror story. I just was sitting with someone now for a couple minutes telling me some crazy, terrible stories. How many children did we lose? Could we afford it? What's one child worth? He goes through a whole thing of one person. And he says, I know, he says, we know it's difficult. We know there are challenges, but you need to figure it out, he says. You need to figure it out. And I got to tell you, when I heard this maybe close to the time he said it, back then, and I tried very hard. I had a smartphone at the time. Business, regular active businessman, active in the community also. And I tried, and it was very hard. The phones back then, they kept breaking. It was really, really a disaster. But I kept trying. And my daughter at the time said, she says, Daddy, maybe, years later, she says, Daddy, if you lived in the time of Mordechai and Esther, would you have went to a Hashvarash's party? I said, what kind of question is that to ask your father? You don't ask your father that question. I said, I don't look like a Ben Torah to you? I said, no. I went to the party. She says, well, Daddy, she says, our Gedolim are saying shouldn't have a smartphone. So now I'm trying to rationalize and telling her, listen, I'm a businessman, I give a lot of tzedakah, I do this, I do that. Next few days, racking my brains, bothering me. I said, maybe I would have went to the party. I went to see Chacham Yosef, and I asked him, I said, I didn't tell him the whole story of my daughter, but I just said, look, I know that the Gedolim is saying a person shouldn't have. But I feel like I do a lot for the yeshiva. I have a lot on my plate, and I feel my business won't do well if I don't have it. And he says, don't worry. I tried to start explaining again. He said, don't worry. Go. Okay? If it goes down the tubes, it's on, the Gadol's shoulders. And Baruch Hashem, I was very matzliach. Yes, it was very hard because I'm a hands-on person. I'm not the type to give work to secretaries and things like that. But Baruch Hashem, I was able to pull through. I weathered a storm which took me, which I would say, you want to say addicted? I was very attached. And Baruch Hashem, my business got better. My brains got better. Everything got better. My learning, much better. Much, much better. My family, they danced. They were dancing, my children. They were so happy. They understand how bad it is. They know how bad it is and how dangerous it is. A child, their minds are developing up until they're 20 years old. They have an opportunity. This is their pocket of opportunity. With older people, yes, you could get attached, you could get addicted. But it's not the same. A young person, this is their opportunity. So they're living in a different generation. If you grew up in that generation, you got to make sure that you take care of yourself. You got to make sure that you take care of your children. Look, you have to know also, many people could need these devices. I know someone that came to me a couple of days ago. This lady, she has a hearing device and she needs an app. So I told her, I said, I don't think they're working on something for her because she's a tzaddiket. She wants to have a flip phone. I said, but if you need it, she says, okay, but she says, the lady's embarrassed to use it. I said, that's really something amazing. Something amazing. She's worried about her children. She's worried about her family. This is an amazing thing. And people today are understanding how to do this and how to get it done. After, just on a more upbeat note, he ends off Rabbi Solomon, and he says, anybody that that has a flip phone, imagine, this is a flip phone, you have a flip phone, you're making a Kiddush Hashem, okay? Go like this, Kiddush Hashem. Very easy. Unbelievable. And he says, I know, I'm fully aware that entails Mesirut Nefesh. But I assure you, you're going to reach tremendous benefit, both in Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba, for you, yourself, and your entire family. Gadol. I'll tell you another Gadol. Cham Yosef, Raful Shlita. So he said very similar words. I'll quote a couple parts. Because you know it's ruining marriages, ruining families, ruining children, ruining everyone. This is the Yetzer Hara of today. Smartphones and other devices are so addictive. If we fight the battle, at the end he ends off, which is the main words, with Mesirut Nefesh. Really it is Mesirut Nefesh. He says, we'll win, and we'll have great Beracha and Siyata D'Shmaya. The words of a Gadol. Rabbi Sorotskin quotes Rav Chaim Kanievsky. Important. You can't imagine what bracha and protection, he says shmira, that you're going to bring into your house for yourself and your family when you have a basic phone. Rav Chaim Kanievsky said, a lot of the shmirah that we're missing is due to these non-kosher phones. And the way that we get back the shmirah is by using basic phones. And you have to know, when I changed also, I'm thinking about it, I had filtered. My phone was filtered. It was, I would say, very good, But it's nothing like it when you're around and you're going like this with your family. It's just a different thing. It's a different thing. It's a different world. You're showing them, I'm with you. This is not for us. And the child, as they grow up, they understand that, and they start to feel it and be part of it. Rav Wozner was a Posek Hador, and he said, I will say that this is the most dangerous Yetzer Hara since the creation of the world. That's a crazy statement. The most dangerous Yetzer Hara since the creation of the world. What is that? How are we supposed to fight that? How strong are we? But I heard Rabbi Waxman speak a little bit on this subject. And he says, you have to believe in yourself. If Hashem's giving us this challenge, you have to know it's within you to do well. And you could win. And think of yourself as special. Every one of us, every one of you, special, very special, not just regular, very special. And if we think like that, we're going to elevate ourselves, and then we could win. And then Hashem will help us get through. And when we have a challenge and we try and we show, Hashem, I want to do it, He'll help us. He'll give us the Siyata D'Shmaya. And I tell that with children also. They're learning, they're this, they're that. You show Hashem these gaming devices, don't use them. Because when you use those gaming devices, it's saying, do I really want to be able to focus and do better? I have to put that, I can't use that. And then Hashem sees. You open up the Gemara, it's a different world. It's a different world. It's something that you have to know is real. There's a story that I spoke in the Cheder. It was a big yeshiva in Lakewood. And I was speaking to the younger division. It's called primary. The Rebbeim, very big school. There's thousands of students, 6,000 kids in the school. So speaking to this group of Rebbeim, I spoke. And Baruch Hashem, it seems like, the message was well received. Then one Rebbe came over to me and he says, I want to tell you something. He says, I had a student in my class, 6-year-old boy. He's sitting, imagine the boy sitting, and he says, I'm speaking to the class, and everybody's with me, but this boy can't get through to the boy. I'm trying, not happening. Finally, I got the guts to call the mother. And I said, is the boy okay? He's fine at home. Please, take him to so-and-so. He's not doing so good in school. Let him evaluate him. Let's see what he has to say. And the man said, too much screen time. Okay? The mother, he said, excellent mother. Shut down everything. Nothing. No games, no videos, nothing. She must have made major major sacrifices herself. And he told me this boy became the best boy in the class. I said, what? I said, I speak a lot, Rabbi. I said, I want to tell the truth. One of the best or the best? He says, the best boy by far. Could you imagine? The best boy in the class by far? Yes, that's what happens. I said, I'm not an emotional person, but I almost broke down and cried because I see so many problems with children. I said, you saved this boy's life. This boy, they open up a Gemara, and when he gets to 5th grade, he's going to open up a Gemara and look at it and be able to see it, be able to focus, be able to understand it, and get a geschmack in his learning. He's going to enjoy it, have happiness in his learning, not feel bad he can't do well. And if a boy that feels bad, who knows what the next steps are when they feel bad? It just gets harder and harder for them. And that's, with girls, the same. There was a study in the Tel Aviv University, and they were able to do ones that have, smartphones and ones that don't. And they said that the difference is, they gave up crazy examples, but I'll tell you what just a couple lines that they said. They said, in one home, because they were able to see what goes on, they gave an example. They say, one boy says, look, mommy, there's a truck. And the mother says, that's great. Yes, that's great. And she's back doing her thing with the phone. The next mother says, correct. It's a red truck like the one we saw yesterday, and she continues a conversation. He says the measure is the basis for almost every aspect in a child's development. Linguistic, social, emotional. How many more smiles? How important is a smile for a child? How many more smiles is that child going to get? A child needs his mother. He needs his mother. And so too they need their father. They need their father. So many times I walk down the street, I see the father with the boy, and the boy's looking up, and the father's just so busy with his thing. Like the boy's not even there. They need him. And a wife needs her husband. Husband needs the wife. Maybe even more so. Things have to change a little bit. It could be even for people with flip phones. They're busy. People want to ask, why today there's so many therapists? I believe a lot of it is because of these devices. The child can't do well because they're on it and they're up late at night and they're exhausted. How are they supposed to do well? And it's not only smartphones. By the way, an iPad is just a big smartphone. Just a big smartphone. Just as probably worse. I remember in the yeshiva we had so many problems that we found because of smartphones. Because of the iPads. Also the gaming devices. They don't have to have internet. They're very, very bad. They're very bad. Don't buy them for your kids. There was a beautiful story that I just heard of a high school Rebbe. And he teaches the 9th grade. And there was a boy in his class that was doing okay, but in English, not doing well at all. And they took him and they said, maybe ADD, maybe this, maybe that, and they're talking about medicine. But finally they went and they asked the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, I don't see anything wrong with this boy. But the boy came back to the Rebbe after and he says, listen, Rebbe. He says, maybe I do good in this class. I said, but I go out at night and I try to learn with the boys. There's a group that they go and they learn. I'm not even there. He says, I don't get. He says, do me a favor. Shut your phone off. One night. Just try it one night. Boy shuts his phone off. All of a sudden, comes back the next day. Was a lot better. He says, try it for another couple of days. The boy shut every time. Goes, shuts it off. After 3-4 days, his friends came back to the boy and says, what happened to you? You're on fire. You're on fire. What happened to you? This is what happens. This is what happens. When I traveled Sometimes I travel even to different countries and speak. And I was in Panama, and I spoke in a kollel there, and there was some people listening. So one guy came to me the next day. He's supposed to be a very successful businessman. I forgot his first name. His name is Azrak. Very good guy. And he came over to me. He says, "Listen, I heard what you said. I agree." He says, "But I can't go in full force." He says, "But I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to not take my phone into the Bet Midrash when I learn." I said, "You know what?" I said, "You're better than me." I said, "You're better than me." I said, "I have to learn from you." I said, "Today, I don't do that." Now this is over a year or so ago. And I stopped doing that. Some of my Siddurim, I don't bring my phone in. I leave it outside. And this is something that helped me tremendously. These things, you don't think, it's just everybody's casual. Many people, they open up their Gemara and their phone's right here. What kind of thing is that? What's important to you, the Gemara or that? What kind of message is that to the people there? Or somebody that's walking around and, this is the important thing. They go into a meeting, boom, it's there. It doesn't make sense. Our social skills, our communication. I meet a lot of boys today when they come for jobs. I'm sorry to tell you that they're not, you could tell, you look in their eyes. We have to show a different example. One person told me in their house they made a no phone zone. I think the dinette. It's a hard place to make it. But imagine every time they go sit down and eat together, no phones. Can't bring the phone in there. Great. Beautiful. These are the things that we need to do. We need to start making changes. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, I'll give you a quote. He says, "Real chinuch is showing your children how you act." Same thing the Stipler got on. He says, "Children and students are automatically attracted and copy the example by their parents and teachers." And I remember my children also wear a white shirt. They wear white from this. All the kids in this class, my wife's saying, everybody's wearing blue shirt. No, I want white shirts only. I wear white shirt. The kids, plain. I'm plain. He's plain. This is what goes on. My daughter, she teaches in a class. She says, if I bring a pink box tea, all the kids want pink box tea. People follow, children want to follow their role models, and they follow their parents and their teachers. And that's really something we have to be aware of. And if we have that self-sacrifice, it's going to show, and you'll see a difference. The Netivot Shalom says the atmosphere in your house has a big influence, or the greatest influence, on a child. One of my daughters said that one of her friend's mothers, she said she didn't want to take her son to the mall, so she showed him online things. And she says, as she's showing him, she's going like this, blocking things on the screen. I said, what kind of thing is that? How could it be? A child shouldn't be going online. Girls shouldn't be going online, or boys shouldn't be going online shopping. If a mother has to do it and whatever privately and then return it or whatever because she can't, that's her own business. But children should not be exposed to that. It's not good. It's not healthy. And they shouldn't feel like that's regular. I'll tell you, Rabbi Matityahu Salman, a big part of chinuch is having a happy home. Your home has to be happy. It has to be a smiley home, a happy home, an alive home. I always say, on Shabbat, today it's almost free with the LED. Leave your lights on, make it a happy home, make it an exciting home. He writes, and he says, you should get games, get these memory card games for the little kids. He says, it sharpens the brain. They look and they see and they match them up. He talks about building toys are useful in the development of many skills, he says. And it gives them a sense of accomplishment. Puzzles, he says, are also very good for the development of a mind. And then he says something interesting. First, he talks about don't make a big deal out of somebody winning or losing. You can buy board games, things like that, but you should come with a prerequisite. It doesn't matter who wins or loses. You're going to have a good time. Don't make a big deal out of the winner. He said, also, I'll give you another thing for the older boys. I know with my son, chess. He says some great Rabbanim would play chess from time to time. But their motive was certainly not to gain victory over the opponents, who also were probably Rabbanim, he says. He says, chess is an exercise for the mind. It's complex and a deep game. And playing well requires strong concentration, focus, and disciplined thinking. When a child plays chess, the skills they gain can help them later in mastering difficult and complicated sugyot. Listen to the way a gadol thinks. I could tell you, my wife, till today, she sits on the floor and plays these. I wish I could say I do it. She sits on the floor and plays games with the kids. That's the way the house is. It's a house that's games, and there's nothing. Make it a happy house. She knows you have to know how to do that. I'm going to end with a short story, not a short story, something that Rabbi Solomon ended off with. And he said that Rav Shimon Schwab, he was traveling from the Mir Yeshiva. He was learning in the Mir. And he was traveling back home to Germany. And he said, I want to go to the Chafetz Hayim. I want to get a bracha from the Chafetz Hayim. And so he went off and finally got to Chafetz Hayim. He says the Chafetz Hayim was very old. Very old. He said, shvach, very weak. And he said, when he walked into the Chafetz Hayim looked up at him and said, are you a Kohen? And he said, no, Rabbi, I'm not a Kohen. How come you're not a Kohen? Well, my father's not a Kohen. He says, how come your father's not a Kohen? He said, now, I don't know. What does he want? What does the Chafetz Hayim want from me? He said, I'm going to tell you why your father and your father's father was not a Kohen. He says, when the Yidden were in the desert, they were in the Midbar, and they did the Heta Egel, Moshe Rabbeinu was the Gadol Bador, came and he said, Mila Hashem Elai, Mila Hashem Elai. And the Chafetz Hayim told him, my Zaidi went with Moshe Rabbeinu. My Zaidi went with Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's why I'm a Kohen. Your Zaidi didn't go with Moshe Rabbeinu. So what kind of thing? By the way, I'm not a Kohen either. My Zaidi didn't go. So he says, but I'm telling you this for a reason. He says, you're going to have that message come to you one day in your life. There's going to be a message. It's going to say, Mila Hashem Elai. And you're going to need to make the right decision. Make sure you make that right decision. And Rabbi Solomon ended off, and he says, the Gadol says something. We have an opportunity. If we make that right decision, it's not going to only affect us and our children. Our grandchildren, and after that, are going to say, my Zaidi, my grandfather, my grandmother, they had the challenge of technology, and they made the right decisions. We should learn that our Gedolim are precious. We have to heed to their words. We have to listen to them and make Hashem proud. And if we do all this, you'll be zocheh to excellent children. You'll have everything in life like the brachot. And we'll be zocheh, Zat Hashem, to see Nachamat Zion.